What's going on, everybody? Got my tea, just went for a swim, got the blood flowing. So this has actually been a major thing, a major problem for me for years, and it's come up again recently, and I want to talk about it because it's really difficult to get out of because it's so deeply burned into people's neurology, especially people pleasers, and that's something I've had an issue with for a long time is people pleasing and weak boundaries. And that's being a spectator. For a lot of years now, and I slip in and out of this sometimes even today, I feel like I'm a spectator in my wife's life. So whoever needs me the most, which is usually a spouse and then your kids, I find that people like me, or people like us if you're watching this and you're similar, and you've been a people pleaser for a long time, or you've had issues with setting boundaries or enforcing boundaries, is that you wake up every day in this funk of I'm spectating. So I'm existing until my person comes home, whether that's your spouse or your kids or whoever, and they will dictate everything about my experience. So I'm living for them, I'm living to serve them. So there's no me in this equation. Like I don't actually exist. I'm what Gen Z calls an NPC or a non-playable character, which is really funny, by the way, because that's my initials. So I think that's so funny. Definitely not something I appreciate, but the universe is full of synchronicities, as Carl Jung would say. Yeah, a lot of days I wake up and when I'm working and I work mostly from home, it feels like I'm just existing until my wife comes home. And then I do everything for her, then I go to bed and wake up the next day and do it all over again. And the idea of me determining what I do with my own day, for me, for no one else, but just for me, that's a really foreign idea. It doesn't scare me, but it feels very foreign. It's unfamiliar. So for example, if I took a day off and I didn't have to be with my wife and my kids because they're at school and work, I actually would not know what to do with my day most of the time. And if you were to ask me what would make you feel good, what is something you could do today that would be exciting, I don't know. Now that's odd. Something's not right there. If I have full control and full agency over how I choose to spend my free day, and I don't even know what would be exciting enough for me to do, that tells me that I'm not used to having sovereignty and agency in my own life. And of course, this probably comes from childhood, but this is particularly damaging for men. And that's why I want to talk about it today, because I did something I don't usually do today. And we live in a condo, we have a swimming pool in the condo downstairs, and randomly I started swimming in the middle of the day on my lunch break. And it feels really good. A, because it's something very different to my usual routine. I'm only on day 2 of doing this. It feels very strange because it's not part of my usual routine. So that in and of itself feels good. It feels like I've accomplished something, which is weird to say. So I got my blood pumping, I got more oxygen in my body, I feel better now, I feel more energized. But at the same time, just doing something so out of the ordinary with my daily routine, in like a neurological way, it kind of shakes you up, it like shakes you awake. It's like the psychological equivalent of doing a cold plunge, because it just shocks you awake, doing something so different to what you usually do. And I think that's so important, particularly for men, to do that every once in a while. In fact, no, not every once in a while, to do that as a practice. What I've decided during my swimming to commit to now is that when I wake up every day, I can no longer be a spectator and play a bit part in someone else's life. I can't just exist until that person comes home. Sorry, just checking on my cat. Thought he was spraying litter everywhere. He's the one who gave me this cut, by the way, on the lip, so don't mind that. That was my cat. Yeah, I can't be a spectator anymore because it doesn't feel good to me, but it's causing real damage downstream to my spouse and my kids because they're looking to me for direction and to initiate. Masculine energy is, if you had to pick one thing that embodies masculinity in its entirety, it's initiation. In the practical sense, not in the conceptual sense, but the practical sense, initiating. You starting something, not waiting for circumstances to naturally move you in that direction, but you taking it upon yourself to move, regardless of circumstance. No input from the external, all internally driven. That's how we take control in a healthy way. That's how we take back control of our own destiny in our own lives. Even doing this right now, starting a YouTube channel has been a dream of mine for nine years now, and I still haven't had a consistent run, a long, sustained, consistent run of doing this. I get some motivation to shoot 1 or 2 videos. I might last 3 days and I fizzle out. Again, because I fall back into this default setting of being a spectator and playing a spectating role in my wife's life instead of waking up every day to live for me. Now, that doesn't mean you neglect your partner. That doesn't mean you do things to sabotage your own partner's best interests. But what it does mean, I think, so there's always a light and a shadow side to things. Okay. If you can merge that energy of initiating, but also you being the main character in your life, if you can merge that with the best interests of the person you're with, that's the light side of this. Because you actually become, we become like a true leader for our partner's best interests. Not telling them what to do, but we're leading them in the direction that they want to go. So that's the light side of this. But the shadow side is something that we have to accept. You can't have one without the other. They come as a package. You have to take the bad with the good. And the shadow side of this, of being the main character and living through your lens and living your story instead of waiting for your spouse to come home so you can play a small part in their story, is that if you're living from your lens and your character's journey, occasionally that's going to clash with your spouse because you're two different people. Now, hopefully you have very similar personal values and needs. Hopefully those two mesh, because you'll be incompatible otherwise. So hopefully there's some strong compatibility there. But you're still two unique individuals. So occasionally that's living from that perspective is going to cause a clash. You're going to start diverging a little bit from what she wants you to do or they want you to do. And your natural response to that is, well, what do I do then? What's the answer? Do I continue to do what I want to do for me, or do I bow to their pressure to do what they want me to do? In other words, how do I make that stress go away, or that friction? How do I make that go away? Why am I doing this during the video? And the more I live through this, I've been living through this for like 8 years now, is there is no answer. You accept that friction is going to be there. Can't make it go away. The closest answer I can give you is that you continue to live from your frame, because your wife's not living your life, or your partner's not living your life. And if you keep going back, every time they put some pressure on you to stop what you're doing and go do what they want you to do, there comes a point where you start asking, well, when does that end? If you're going to keep doing that every time they put pressure on you, it's never going to end, is it? Because all they need to do is put pressure on you, and then you fold. You stop living from your frame, and then you enter their world, and you become a smaller bit player in their world again. And that's just going to keep happening over and over and over again. That's why I don't think that works. Now, this doesn't mean you neglect their needs, and it doesn't mean that you do things that will cause harm to their best interests. Obviously, there are nuances. There's too many to name here. But how do I put this? You need to have a healthy sense of what someone's best interests really are. Someone's best interests does not involve small requests or things that don't really matter in the bigger picture. I'm talking about deeper core needs, not surface level, external, circumstantial things. Deep core needs. That's where you will find the person's best interests. So, an example, let's say they asked you to clean the bedroom today. And let's say doing that, for some reason, would take you away, that would eliminate doing something that you really needed to do for you, that would also end up helping the family too. The bedroom doesn't get cleaned. And this will be another video, but this will then lead to the next thing, which is their negative reaction and how do you deal with that. There's nothing to solve. I've beat myself over the head with this for years. I'm very used to this suffering, because that's what it has been for a while. It's suffering through their negative responses to what you do or don't do, and wanting to make that negative energy go away. You want to solve the problem. You want to calm the storm, and through years and years of suffering, I'm starting to realize you can't. You're not supposed to make that storm go away. You're not supposed to make them calm down. You're not supposed to solve the problem. You're not supposed to do anything. The more I think about it, being with a woman really is like being with a child. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I don't mean that in a patronizing way. What I mean by that is women are especially feminine women, are primarily emotional creatures. That is something that they have in common with a child. If you think about the structure of the brain, you have your reptilian, I forget what they call it, base instincts. I forget what the proper term is for that part of the brain. Then you have the limbic brain, which is the emotional center. Then you have the neocortex, which is the thinking, higher level, higher order brain. And they develop and grow in stages. And that's why children aren't very rational in the beginning, because their intellectual neocortex hasn't formed yet. So they're living and experiencing the world and themselves primarily through their limbic emotional brain. Feminine women are very similar in that way. Now, they can turn that on and off when the situation calls for it. For example, when they go into the workplace, if they become a parent, if they're a single parent, or if their environment is so dangerous to them that survival demands that they shut those emotions down and live from a more rational, linear, logical, masculine center. But more often than not, just like children, they really do live from their emotions. And when children are upset, you'll understand this if you're a parent. You can't make that go away. You can't make it go away. Right? There's nothing you can do that will, through cause and effect, dissipate that energy. Ironically, like one of the biggest paradoxes of the universe when it comes to a child's discomfort is the most effective way of having that experience get better is to not try and make it get better. one of the easiest ways, well, no, I won't say easiest, the simplest way to make that pain go away is to stop trying to make that pain go away. What do you mean? I mean, sit through it with them. When my son is upset, I don't try and make him calm down. I don't try and make him happier. I sit through it with him. I'm just there. He processes the emotions himself. And I'm very fortunate that I was able to learn this lesson really early on with him. And I think that's why he feels, I have a very strong attachment with my son. And that goes both ways. He has a very, very strong attachment to me. I think that's why he acts a certain way with me, uniquely, because I think emotionally he feels safe with me. And one of the reasons why I think that's the case is because when he gets upset, I don't try and force him to process that faster than he can, that he's capable of. I sit with him through it, and I just allow him to do whatever he needs to do internally on his own time. And when I do that, he tends to resolve it pretty quickly. I'm just there. That's how you need to be with your women. Usually they calm themselves down. They calm themselves down. But they need you to be almost like a void. I don't want to say be their rock or be their solid ground, because honestly, like, I'm getting really fed up and sick and tired of these abstract poetic terms that the spiritual, the dating community uses, because I honestly think a lot of people that speak like that are full of shit and they don't really know what they're talking about, because when you ask them to provide concrete, specific, tangible, actionable, duplicatable steps in the forms of instruction, they can't do it. They circle back round to the same abstract poetry. And this is another video for another day. But honestly, I really have very little tolerance and very little patience for people who speak that way. So I'm not going to say be their rock or be their steady place. It's almost like you're a void. It's like, you know when a woman screams into a pillow because they're just so like angry and they need to dissipate that energy? It's like you need to be this void for them to unleash and unload and offload all of that energy into a void that's not going to react and bounce it back to them, which is what happens when you get emotional and you get defensive. That happens to me a lot. That's been a long journey for me. I'm still trying to learn how to do it. When you get emotional, when your woman gets emotional, you get reactive. You become reactive. When you become reactive, you get defensive. When you get defensive, you start bouncing back all this energy that they're trying to offload onto you. So if you bounce it back, you haven't helped them. So it's almost like I need to become a void of nothingness for them to offload that energy into, so they can shed it and let it go. And instead of me bouncing it back to them, because from my own reactive, emotional, defensive trauma from my own childhood, you have to take that energy and drop it. So it's like you're taking a burning coal, I guess, off of her, and instead of giving it back to her, and then that will burn her, you take it off of her, and then you drop it yourself. This is not a very good way of explaining it. I think I need to be a lot more articulate, but I hope you get the picture. I'm not going to make this video again because I don't have the time. I have to go back to work, and I need to commit to actually posting, so I'm not making this video again, so I'm just going to roll with it. But I think you'll start to find, if you can practice, this is a skill, like, don't expect to do this from jump. I think that's another mistake I made, is you hear these people talk about this like it's just a simple instruction, and once you hear it one time, you'll be able to execute it perfectly, but this is a skill. Learning how to hold space and be a void for your woman to offload all her emotional charge onto you, that's a skill. Skills take time to develop, and skills require practice to develop. So if you're going to expect to be an expert at doing this and to execute it perfectly the first time, you're probably not going to be able to do that. If you can, great. Now, obviously, don't hold yourself back arbitrarily. Reach to as high of a standard as you can, but don't expect to be a perfect void or to execute this perfectly with your woman the first time you try this, it might take some practice. But if you can do that, if you can just be there with them, stop rushing them through it, stop trying to do something, and just let them have their moment, you'll be pretty surprised how quickly they calm down. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I think I've veered off into multiple different tangents, so that's something I need to work on as I keep making these videos. But I really hope that helps some of you today. I gotta go back to work now. I hope you guys are getting excited for Christmas. It's my favorite time of year. We're going home to England for Christmas, so I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. This is really my favorite time of year. People are, in general, people on the street, especially in England, are just a little bit more upbeat, a bit more relaxed, a bit more easygoing about things. There's more warmth, there's more cheer in the air. The vibration is slightly higher for the average person on the street. And that's why I like Christmas. So I'm really excited. I hope you guys have something to look forward to. I'm committing to making another video tomorrow. Hopefully I don't ramble on like I do with this one. But cheers. I'll see you soon.